Hello, my name is Kevin and welcome to the Love Decanters channel. So today I'm going to talk about Whitefriars ribbon trail pattern vases and bowls. And this is something you don't see masses of it, but it is something you will see frequently, let's say. And when I started collecting, you saw it everywhere. I mean, Whitefriars, it was the beginning of the 90s. And it was what I started collecting. So I started collecting decanters because I thought they were cool, and then I noticed these vases, and yeah. And in fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some books. So before this is one of the books before this book came out, and there's another one, the Museum of London book. Yeah, you were kind of hunting around, trying to find out what was what through whatever reference books you could get. So I was, in addition to going out and hunting for glass, I was scouring second-hand bookshops and picking up any glass books I could find. And yeah, and a lot of the books on antique glass, in the back of them they would have some, and I'm talking about the old books, they would have some modern glass, but in actual fact, if you've got a book that's from the 50s or even from the 30s, that modern glass is very vintage now, and yeah, and Whitefriars would often feature amongst that. So it's quite, and that's how I learned about Whitefriars initially in the first few years I was collecting at the beginning of the 90s. And yeah, it was a different time where you could, if I had the knowledge I had now back then, God, I would be so rich. Because I remember sort of like going by and seeing sort of like 3 drunken bricklayers for big ones for 20 quid a piece, and you're just going, yeah, £20 seems like a lot. And all of that textured stuff, I was giving it away as presents as well. So yeah, it is what it is. It's what happened. My wife wasn't keen on it, but I was keeping the ribbon trail stuff and the rib wave stuff, because I could see it in the books. And yeah, so what I will do is I'll show you some of those books, and then I'll get on and show you the bits of glasses I've got. So I used to have loads of it. I did give a lot away as presents, and I sold some as well over the years. So I only have a few pieces left. So the pieces I have are, let's say, less common. So, but we can talk about that when we get to them. So yeah, let's get on, and I'll show you a few books. The first book I'm showing you here is called Glass by W.B. Honey, and he's worked at the Victoria and Albert Museum, and this is glass that's actually in the Victoria and Albert Museum collection. So and yeah, and this is your ribbon trail bowl here. And so yeah, this book is from 1946, and made by James Powell and Son, 1935, designed by Barnaby Powell. And then there's another bowl there by Tom Hill, who was one of the glass blowers at the factory. But yeah, so this is where I was first encountering this type of glass. So the book I'm looking at here is called English Glass, the glass used in England, circa 400 to 1940, by R.J. Charleston. And if I flip it open, here we go. We have a vase, and this is another ribbon trail one. This is quite a rare shape, and yeah, so R.J. Charleston worked for the Victoria and Albert Museum as well. So a lot of the glass in here is from the Victoria and Albert Museum, and yeah, this is quite a rare shape. Yeah, this is from 1984, this book. So this is another book called English Glass by Sidney Crompton from 1967. There's no ribbon trail in this, but I'll give you an idea of the bits of, so you've got one of the bark design vases by Baxter here. And this is in the last few pages of the book. So yeah, more soda glass vases from Whitefriars. more Whitefriars, a bit more, and another one. So there you go. So this is how I was finding my stuff. I've got one more to show you. The book I'm looking at here is English and Irish Glass by Geoffrey from 1968, I think. And yeah, so it's just got these in it. But you get the idea. Probably if I was to go through all my books of this period and pick out all of the back pages that have got a bit of modern glass. I mean, they've got a little lamp up there, and I think on the next page, a bit of Dartington. But anyway, if I was to sort of like combine all of the bits of Whitefriars from all these books, you'd make probably a not very decent Whitefriars reference book. But this is how I learned out about it and that it even existed. So yeah, so with that said, we'll move on and look at some glass. So the first bowl I'm showing you is a 12-inch 9031 bowl, designed by Tom Hill in 1935. So Barnaby Powell did do the sort of like original ribbon trail, and then Tom Hill did this variation on the shape. And yeah, so this two-tone is sea green with blue on it. You can see this is a rarer than the solid colours. It comes in sapphire, sea green, amber, I think emerald, and yeah, and this one here. And I think this is the rarest colour of them, well, two colours, but anyway, yeah, it's very nice, and it looks very pretty with this two-tone colour as well. So the book we're looking at is Whitefriars Glass, The Art of James Powell and Sons by Leslie Jackson. Yeah, I'm going to stick with this book, so I'm not going to keep saying that. But yeah, here's the bowl that we were looking at, and yeah, Tom Hill, who was apparently a glassblower, decided to change the shape of this one, which was designed by Barnaby Powell, and created this nice wide fruit bowl. I have used these as fruit bowls in my house, so yeah, they work quite well. And yeah, so that's the first one we were looking at, and you can see all the different colours that it comes in. These two are the rarest. These two are the most common. So this is the 8901 bowl, designed by Barnaby Powell in 1932. This one's 7.5 inches wide, and yeah, I've had this a long time. This colour emerald. Sorry about that. This colour is emerald, which is quite a rare colour, and yeah, this one's special because this was from the beginning of when I was collecting, and I bought it at auction at Christie's. Well, it wasn't the beginning. I'd been collecting a while, but I decided this was quite an important collection that was being sold. I thought I would take a couple of days off and go. Parkington collection, and I thought I'm going to buy a load of stuff, yeah, and it all went really crazy expensive. So I only bought a couple of bits, but this was one of them, and yeah, it's very nice, and it has a lot of the ends of the trails don't taper quite often. They just get a little bit fatter just at the very end. So they have a thin tail at one end, you can see there, and a slightly fatter end at the other. So I just thought I'd show you that on this one. And obviously it's got the distinctive Whitefriars polished pontle mark. Not everything has that polished pontle mark, but yeah, everybody expects it to. So there you go. And also, look at that, big bit of frit. Yeah. So yeah, Whitefriars does, their big bits tend to have chunks in them. So here we are with the 8894 vase, and you can see all of this winding is done by hand, because you can see some of it's really wide, some of it's quite tight. The one that I have like this is much tighter than this. I think it must be wrapped around about 5 times. whereas this looks like it's only going around about 3 or 4. So yeah, there is a lot of variation in the. You can also see on here that the thickness of the ribbons quite thicker, and some of them are quite thin. And then also you've got this one here where it starts out thick and then it thins out quite quickly. So yeah, there's lots of variation in them, but that rounded bit at the beginning and the tail at the end is the distinctive piece. So here's another one. This is an 8894 that's in two-tone, so it's blue on green. As I said, I don't have any of the blue and purple, but or purple and blue. Anyway, I don't have any of those ones. And yeah, you can see if you look at the end here, as I was pointing out earlier, it just has a little bit more rounded just there at the end. When you look at the end of the tail at the bottom, it comes to a point. I mean, another thing some of them have that this one has is that the ring is not like it's completely solid. It dips in a little bit in the middle here. See if I can show that if I'm putting it close. Can you just see there? Yeah, that must be something to do with the way it was made. I don't know. I wasn't there when they were doing it. And yeah, and also, yeah, this too is from the Parkington collection from 1997. And yeah, it was one of the few bits that didn't go absolutely crazy. So here we are with the 8894 vase, and you can see all of this winding is done by hand, because you can see some of it's really wide, some of it's quite tight. The one that I have like this is much tighter than this. I think it must be wrapped around about 5 times, whereas this looks like it's only going around about 3 or 4. So yeah, there is a lot of variation in the. You can also see on here that the thickness of the ribbons quite thicker, and some of them are quite thin. And then also you've got this one here where it starts out thick and then it thins out quite quickly. So yeah, there's lots of variation in them, but that rounded bit at the beginning and the tail at the end is the distinctive piece. So this is in amethyst, this one. It's a 9030, which was designed in 1935, I think, by Powell. And yeah, the colour's interesting. So I've been digging through the catalogues. In the book, in the Leslie Jackson book, and I'll show you in a minute, it says that they did amethyst until the end of the 1940s. But they didn't do this colour in the 1938 catalogue. It appeared in the 1940 catalogue. And probably not long after that, they would have stopped making it. And it probably, I reckon they would have stopped making it until the end of the war. During the war, you weren't allowed to make art glass, and a vase is art glass. That's why you see those little celery vases with celery, because it's written on them during the war, because that was tableware, because it was for eating celery out of, as opposed to being a vase for flowers. So yeah, so this was probably made just before the war, and then not during the war, and then after the war, but probably not having great production runs at that time because it was after the war and people didn't have money. So yeah, amethyst is a sought after colour, and you don't see many of them. And yeah, I've heard, I've not met any, but I've heard that some people specifically look for this colour. So here we are looking at the 9030 bowl vase. I don't know what's going wrong with my mouth. Anyway, and you can see they were also doing these ribbed wave ones in that colour as well at that time. And it does tell you that it only goes produced until the end of the 40s. So here we go with this is I think it's an 8886, and yeah, you can see it's a nice big one as well. Just see, And yeah, you can see this one very distinctly, the tail whipping off, because you're going to see other people making this type of vase with various wrappings like this, where you get a single spiral going around. They call it ribbon trail. And yeah, you can see a bit of wear on the base. So this will be the similar age to the other one, where it's either just pre-war or post-war. And yeah, they did also make ruby in the same kind of time period. So they started making ruby just before the war, whereas the other colours, the amber and green, etc., they were making those from the beginning of the 30s right through. You see a lot of the ruby ones. You don't see many of these because they stopped these at the end of the 40s, whereas they carried on making the ruby ones. I don't have any ruby ones. I gave them all away. But yeah, so this is the most common shape that you're going to see when you're out and about, and it does come into quite small sizes down to 6 inches. I'm not sure how big it gets. I'll try and look that up. But yeah, this is one of the bigger sizes. I don't think it's quite the biggest, but yeah, it does come in almost a beaker size. So I was talking about ruby ones earlier, and yeah, they've got the amethyst ones here, the ruby ones here, and yeah, this is the shape of that vase that we were looking at. And as I said, they were saying dating from the 30s to the 50s, so as opposed to this one where it says only produced to the end of the 40s there. So yeah, these are much more common, and this shape especially, I've had and given away loads of those over the years. So I hope you enjoyed that little nostalgia trip for me, because this was the start of my those ribbon trail vases were the start of my Whitefriars collecting. Immediately after I started collecting decanters, my obsession. Yeah, I've given away loads as presents. Christmas, birthday. It's boring, but people like them, especially the red ones. So yeah, those seem to have been quite favoured, and they were the most common. So yeah, when I was out shopping for bits and pieces, I'd see one and go, yeah, I know who can have that for Christmas. Anyway, as I said, I hope you enjoyed that. I will put the books that I've used in the description below, and yeah, please like and subscribe, because I will be doing more. Thank you. Good night.